All right, you guys, let's continue this section on solving radical equations. Let's look at this example. So we have the square root of x minus 3 plus 6 equals 10. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to write the problem. Oops, let's change the pen. All right, and step one is always to isolate the radical, which means to get it by itself. So we're going to subtract the 6 from both sides. All right, then we need to identify what the index is. So remember, the index is the number that sits on the hook of the radical. Since there's no number that sits there, it's understood to be 2. So that means we're going to raise both sides of our equation to the second power. When we do that, all right, we're going to be left with what's underneath the radical, which is x minus 3. We're going to square 4, which is 16. And then we're going to solve for x. So in order to solve for x, we need to add 3 to both sides. So we get x equals 19. Okay. Now, before we can accept that as our answer, we always have to check. So we're going to plug x equals 19 into our original equation. So we're going to have 19 minus 3 plus 6 equals 10. 19 minus 3 is 16 plus 6 equals 10. The square root of 16 is 4. 4 plus 6 equals 10. And 10 equals 10. So that's true. So that means we get to keep x equals 19 as our answer. Cool. Let's check to see if we're right. Yes, we are. All right, let's move on to the next problem. Okay. If you want to try this one by yourself, just pause the video here and then come back and join me. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is write the problem. Okay, then we need to isolate the radical, which means to get it by itself. So I'm going to subtract the 2 from both sides. All right, then we need to identify what the index is. The index in this problem is 3, because that's the number that sits on the hook of the radical sign. So that means that we are going to raise both sides of our equation to the third power. Okay, when we do that, we're going to be left with what's underneath the radical, which is x plus 7. And we're going to cube negative 3. So negative 3 to the third power is negative 27. And then we're going to solve for x. So we're going to subtract 7 from both sides. So x equals negative 34. So remember, before you can accept that as your answer, you need to check it. Okay, so we're going to say the cube root, negative 34 plus 7 plus 2 equals negative 1. All right, negative 34 plus 7 is negative 27. Cube root. And the cube root of negative 27 is negative 3. And negative 3 plus 2 is negative 1. And negative 1 equals negative 1. So that's true. So that means our answer is, in fact, x equals negative 34. Okay. All right, let's see if we're right. Yes. All right, let's look at this example. Okay. All right, so this problem looks a little different because we have radicals on both sides of the equation. That's okay. So our directions say to isolate each of the radicals. So they're on separate sides of the equation, so they are already isolated, okay? So don't let the fact that there's 2 of them throw you off. We still need to identify what the index is. We don't see a number on either one of those radical signs, so it's understood that the index is 2. So we are going to raise both sides of our equation to the second power. When we do that, we're going to be left with what's underneath. So we're going to have 2x plus 9 equals x plus 7. And then we're going to solve for x, which means I need all of my variables on one side of the equation and all of my constants on the other. So I just like my variables on the left out of habit, so I'm going to move them that way. And I'm going to move my constants to the other side. So that's going to give me x equals negative 2. All right, so before we can accept that as our final answer, we're going to have to check it. Okay, so that means we need to plug in -2 into our original equation. 2 times -2 plus 9 equals square root -2 plus 7. All right, 2 times -2 is -4. -2 plus 7 is 5. -4 plus 9 is 5. The square root of 5 equals the square root of 5, so that's true. So we get to keep it. Our answer is x equals -2. Good. All right, let's see if we're right. And we are. All right, so let's try one more example. Okay, so same steps. We need to make sure that our radical is isolated. Okay, so I'm going to write my problem first. Okay, so I need to isolate the radical, which means that that 2 needs to move to the other side of the equation. So I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides. Okay, I need to identify what my index is. Once again, the index on this problem is 2. So that means I'm going to raise both sides of my equation to the second power. All right. So on the left-hand side, I'm going to be left with what was underneath the radical, which is x plus 4. Okay. Now the right-hand side, be careful. Okay. That is a binomial. Okay. There's 2 terms here. So that means when we raise it to the second power, we're going to have to use FOIL. Okay. So be careful. So FOIL stands for first, outside, inside, last. So we're going to FOIL that. So in case you forgot, this is equivalent to x minus 2 times x minus 2. So we're going to FOIL it. That's going to give us x squared minus 2x minus 2x plus 4. All right, I'm going to combine like terms. So it's going to give me x plus 4 equals x squared minus 4x plus 4. All right, this is now a quadratic equation, so I need to put it in standard form, which means I need to set it equal to 0. So I'm going to move the x and the 4 from the left-hand side to the right. So it's going to give me 0 equals x squared minus 5x. Okay, and the 4's cancel. Now I need to solve for x. So I could factor it. Okay, so I'm going to pull out the GCF, which is x. It's going to give me x minus 5. And I'm going to set each one of those factors equal to 0. So x equals 0 is already solved. To solve the second one, I'm going to add 5 to both sides. So x equals 5. Now remember, before you can accept these, you need to check them. All right, so I'm going to plug in 0 into my original equation. 0 plus 4 plus 2 equals 0. So 0 plus 4 is 4. Square root of 4 plus 2 equals 0. Square root of 4 is 2. 2 plus 2 does not equal 0. This is not true. So that means we have to throw out x equals 0. It doesn't work. Okay, so we need to try the second one. All right, so we're going to do the square root of 5 plus 4 plus 2 equals 5. So 5 plus 4 is 9. The square root of 9 is 3 plus 2 equals 5. 5 equals 5. So that's true. So the only answer we get to keep this time is x equals 5. Good. I hope this helps.